So before we get the new and gorgeous Nidus Deluxe skin, before you go roaming around with your Nidus, let me tell you first how amazing of a Warframe Nidus is. Let me tell you how you can take Nidus to endgame missions. Before we head to the build section, I would just like to stress out that Nidus is one of the best Warframes in the game, not only because his endgame material, but he is really well built and well designed. His abilities perfectly synergize well with each other, which is one feature I love about Nidus. Speaking of his abilities, let me give you first a brief but comprehensive look at all his kit and how they perfectly synergy with each other. His first ability, called Virulence, allows you not only to damage enemies, but also it allows you to gain mutation stacks which are vital for Nidus' survivability, and as well as increasing Virulence's damage. Not to mention that this ability also gives Nidus lost energy back. Just remember that energy refund is inversely affected by ability efficiency because it is always 25% of energy used to cast, per enemy. To gain stacks with this ability, you don't really need to kill an enemy, you just need to hit them with Virulence. After a total of 5 hits, the gauge finishes a complete cycle and the sections become unlit again, while the counter increases by 1 mutation stack. Now Virulence synergies really well with Parasitic Link, or Nidus' third ability. While Nidus is connected to a target via Parasitic Link, using Virulence will spawn a second instance from the linked target that grows toward the targeted location, converging with the first instance from Nidus. This will help you build your mutation stack much faster, but that's not the only use of Parasitic Link. Its main use is to make Nidus tanky with that 90% damage redirection. Since it redirects all damage dealt by enemies to the one that you have linked, it is wise to pick targets with high health and armor values like those bombards or heavy gunners, as they can absorb a large amount of damage transferred from Nidus. Now that's the effect of this ability when you bind an enemy. But when it is cast on allies, you will both gain a % damage increase depending on how much power strength you put in your Nidus. Honestly, I usually use Parasitic Link on enemies and not on allies, as the damage redirection is more helpful than the damage boost. There are probably other Warframes that can do a lot better in increasing damage, and I prefer being tanky with my Nidus. Aside from being able to absorb a hell of a lot of damage, Nidus has an innate life regeneration which allows you to heal for 25 health per seconds at max rank. Now this is not only the health regen ability of Nidus, there's also his fourth ability called Ravenous, which grants tons of health regeneration depending on how much power strength you put on your Nidus. Just remember that you need to be inside the spawning ground to receive the health regen effect. But that's not only the use of Ravenous, it also serves as a sort of mini crowd control and as well as a source to help you outstack those mutations points much faster. The infested cysts form on the spawning grounds, hatches up to 9 maggots that seek out nearby enemies to feast upon. Once enemies are detected, maggots frenzy with increased movement speed and leap toward their prey to latch onto them, while attached to an enemy. Each maggot will continuously stun its target and inflict toxin damage amplified by the number of mutation stacks accumulated per second until the target dies or maggot expires. If the maggot explodes on an enemy, that counts as 1 hit per enemy, but when a maggot host is hit or killed by Virulence, the host itself is an eligible target and will count as 2 hits. One from Virulence and the other from the explosion of a single maggot that was attached. Now with all those abilities, you can actually stack decent amount of mutation stacks, but they are really not enough, especially in endurance runs. You need to have full mutation stack always, not only to take advantage of the increase in damage, or to have the ability to always use Parasitic Link and Ravenous, but also to take advantage of Nidus' Undying passive, which grants him 5 seconds of invincibility and restoring 50% health whenever he receives a fatal damage. To do so, you need something that can group enemies, and that is where Nidus' second ability, Lava, come to play. This ability is just amazing in grouping enemies, as it allows you to stack mutations much faster. Just notice how I can stack mutation fast when I group enemies and have Ravenous active, while casting Virulence through a linked target. Now if you think I have missed some details on each of Nidus abilities, feel free to add them on the comment box below later. For now, let's take a look at my Endgame Nidus build. So after tons of experiments and test, this is my final build for Nidus when I want to do some endurance runs, or probably when I'm taking this Warframe in any sort of high-level missions. It's a pretty balanced mod setup with just one corrupted mod in the form of Transient Fortitude. Now this mod plus Power Drift will give your parasitic link that 90% damage redirection you need for tanking. Now I know some players would prefer overextended and stretch so they can group lots of enemies with lava, but I don't like the negative power strength that overextended have. If I have overextended, then I need to put Blind Rage on this build, which I don't like on doing also. I did have a Blind Rage build for Nidus and tested it a couple of times in endurance runs, but it doesn't really performs well. It may be personal taste. 21 meters pull range is quite enough in my honest opinion. In addition, others would prefer to have fleeting expertise to lower the duration of lava, but I don't like it either, as there's probably a way to cast lava more often without using this corrupted mod. In addition, I have primed continuity on my build for more duration on Ravenous and Parasitic Link, while I have Hunter Adrenaline and primed Flow to support my energy consumption. Last but not the least, I have Vitality and Steel Fiber for survivability. Now if you have the resources, you can equip your Nidus with Arcane Guardian for extra armor and Arcane Energize for energy. The Arcane Energize slot is optional and you can equip any arcanes that you want or need for your Nidus. Before I recommend some weapons and setup that are endgame material for this Nidus build, let me first give a few tips on how you can utilize this build well. When it comes to endgame or dealing with enemies above 200 plus, your goal is to always have a full mutation stack. This helps you in both dealing damage and survivability. So remember the basic mutation stacking principle of Nidus: pull enemies with your lava, always have Ravenous active, and always cast Virulence through a link target as much as possible. In this way, you will be able to build your stack really fast, that you can stack 100 right after you used up your Undying passive. Since this build have some range, Virulence may travel far before you can cast it again. My advice try to cast it wherein it will hit a wall or any obstacle. That way, you can spam your Virulence and build up stack much faster. Now, there are a couple of enemies that will probably hinder you from pulling mobs. One are those Ancient Healers. Once enemies of the Ancient Healer's aura, they will be immune to Ragdoll and pull effects. So, it's best to kill Ancient Healers first, as enemies will remain attached to the tendrils, making lava last longer. In addition, nullifiers can be trouble for your lava, as 1, you can't pull enemies inside the nullifier bubble, and 2, once they get pulled and grouped by your lava, they tend to activate their nullifier bubble, and enemies inside that bubble don't take any damage at all from outside sources. Other than that, there's the Corpus Elite units like the Combo and Scrambus that has the ability to hinder you from casting your abilities. Okay, now let's proceed to the weapons I use for my endgame Nidus. You won't have a problem with level 100 enemies, as you can kill them with Nidus abilities, but when you are dealing with level 150 plus and above, your abilities won't be enough. Now, these weapons that I will show here are just suggestions and not really needed. You can bring any weapons that you find good for Nidus. In fact, I advise you to share your favorite endgame weapon for Nidus on the comment box below later. Okay, here's the loadout I have when I'm doing some endurance runs with my Nidus. I have the comb, the pox and the Oma. The comb is really special with a ribbon that can give you 100% status chance and some extra damage. Its damage is pretty insane against those enemies grouped by Nidus lava. Now this is my usual build for comb, and as you can see, I have a ribbon on it. I have a ribbon less variation for it, but it won't go far against level 140 plus enemies, as it would take about a few rounds to kill those enemies grouped by your lava. I will just leave the link at the end of this video if you want to see that build. If you don't have a ribbon for your comb, then you can have the pox and Oma combination. I did feature this on my group and slide Nidus build, and for some reason, I did not mention it there that it was endgame material. That was really stupid, I know, but anyway, basically, Pox will do the armor stripping and then, Oma will do the killing. Now I did choose Oma since it has the highest slide damage and it perfectly synergies with my maiming strike. This is my usual build for the group and slide, but remember, this is just my personal preference. Try to tune your builds to your own playstyle and not just follow my builds blindly. So that's my endgame Nidus build. I have no problem with this build at high level missions. It just gives me that survivability I need to continuously kill enemies. I definitely suggest that you try this build for yourself. So we reached the end of my video again. Hope to see you on my next one. I do hope that you find this video informative though, and if you did, please do give this video a thumbs up. For those who are new here, you can join the Grind team by simply subscribing to our channel. Just don't forget to turn on notifications for this channel if you want to receive daily Warframe videos from us. Thank you so much for watching. Squad Leader signing off.